Hello, my name is Jouni Vilkka. Welcome to my channel, TFF, Teacher from Finland. Most people are somewhat religious, and of all the religious people, most believe in a God. Especially in the past, the belief in a God has also been used as a basis for morality in the sense that the God, such as the God of Christianity, has been said to be the source of morals. To disobey the morals taught by the Church, then, was to act against the will of God. More recently, especially in Europe, religion has lost much of its popularity, and the will of God is no longer accepted as an answer to why we have the kind of moral views that we do. Secular ethics has replaced religious morals, not only in the private sphere, but also in science and healthcare, for example. I will return to those subjects later, but for now, let's focus on the features of the old kind of religious morality and the ethical theory used to back it up, called supernaturalism. If you are interested in philosophical ethics and the videos I am making about ethics, perhaps you should consider subscribing to my channel. I will begin with what seems useful in supernaturalism. It seems to offer a set of universal morals, rules that apply to all people and all situations. Some might also think that having God as the source of morals means there is no need to look for further foundations of morals. So there can be comfort in thinking that all we need to do is obey the rules. You don't have to distress yourself with the difficult ethical problems. There are, of course, problems with these views. First of all, the moral codes provided by religions have to be applied to real-world situations, and they don't seem to offer a lot in that regard. For example, you might think that the Ten Commandments provide clear guidelines to behavior, but if you actually think about them, things get more complicated. I won't even go into the problems having to do with the translations of the commandments or the numbering chosen for them, but will focus on just some of the commandments as they are commonly known. Take the commandment, "Honor thy father and thy mother," for instance. What does honor here mean? And the list itself is not enough now, so you would have to find other sources, and you will have to interpret the commandment and also apply it correctly in your life if you think this is an important moral rule to follow. You will find that the different interpretations given by different people at different times vary greatly. How about the commandments about not coveting your neighbor's property? I'll ignore the way the Bible here treats, or at least can easily be interpreted as treating, women as property, as well as the fact that the passage seems to condone slavery. If we just interpret the commandment to be about stuff owned by other people, it seems less problematic. But the commandment is not to covet, meaning desire or want to have that stuff. It is not about physical action, but emotion. It seems psychologically difficult, if not impossible, to just decide not to feel a specific emotion. Again, we could interpret the commandment to really be about behavior, telling us not to try and take other people's possessions. That would make sense, but to get there, we have to do a lot of interpreting. Apparently, having the rules dictated by God does not seem to save us from the trouble of thinking, as promised. Even if we take what looks like a clear-cut case that you might think everyone would easily agree with, "You shall not murder," we run into difficulties. What exactly does murder mean here? It can be interpreted to mean any kind of killing, or any killing of humans, in some cases even fetuses. Alternatively, it can be thought to be limited to premeditated murder in the sense usually understood in modern courts of law. Cases involving euthanasia, abortion, or self-defense clearly cause the need to interpret the commandment. And how can you know which interpretation is the one God intended? This, of course, leads us to the more serious problem of knowing that God is in any sense the origin of the commandments. You most likely didn't hear the commandments from God himself. There are several competing versions of theism, meaning the belief in at least one God, so even picking which God or which religious tradition to follow seems arbitrary. Of course, nearly all believers simply follow the tradition they were brought up in, but that really doesn't seem to be much of a guarantee for the truth of the claims of that religion. Not to mention all the other problems having to do with the plausibility of theism. So, the whole point of having the morals from God does not seem to make things easy the way it was supposed to. Instead, different religions compete with each other over whose beliefs are the truth, and the ordinary believer is left to trust their religious leaders. All the different and conflicting morals can't be true at once. But we can go even further and ask whether having a God as a source of morals would even work in principle. We can imagine, after all, that we somehow could know which God really did give us the morals. The problem which Plato discussed in his dialogue, Euthyphro, has come to be known as Euthyphro's dilemma. Dilemma means a problem with two choices, both of which are problematic. The first choice in this case is that the God decided what was good, and it is then good because of God's decision. This view is called divine command theory. The second possible choice is that the God knew what was good and simply informed us about it. In the first case, the morals seem questionable, just arbitrary rules, or a case of might makes right, which itself seems wrong to most people. If the God's decision was enough to make murder wrong, they could just as well have made it mandatory to lie. It doesn't seem plausible. But if the latter case is true, and the God just knew what was good and right instead of making it so, then the good and right don't depend on God after all. So we don't really need the God as a middleman, but could just as well seek to know the truth about morals ourselves. This would leave us with the questions supernaturalism was supposed to answer in the first place. Despite its popularity among people in general, supernaturalism does not look good from a philosophical perspective. In fact, it seems to go against what philosophy is about in a pretty fundamental way. To understand why, you can check out my series on the introduction to philosophy and critical thinking, or even read the book. Links below. In the next video, I will discuss other forms of constructivism to see if they fare any better than supernaturalism. See you then. If you wish to support my channel, please click thumbs up, subscribe, and share my videos. Any comments on the videos would also be welcome.